This is IBM Museum, and for this video I am in front of the IBM 3151 terminal, and I've got it started up. I'll bring up the page of information here in a moment, but the reason I have it on to the setup screen is that I found the manual and I tried to go through the setup process, and it was in German. I pressed the keys and it was just really odd, and through some wild key combination I got into the setup screen and got it at least over to English. I'll have to go through and describe the fields as I go through them, but let's go ahead and bring up the manual here first. And that, this is the IBM announcement of the 3151 ASCII display station. Okay, and I'm sure you can read there. If you need to pause as I go through and scroll through this information. The main thing I wanted to show is the price, because we'll get looking at the exterior of this unit. There is lots of effective competition for this model, because it's just an ASYNC terminal, which of course a lot of other brands did. In fact, it goes through and it talks about the cartridges on this page. The cartridge to emulate the Weiss, and it's got one in parentheses, or to emulate the DEC terminal, and that is because those are effectively trademarks of those terminal types. And then of course, even with DOS on this scene, during this time that this terminal came out, it was marketed, I think its availability was in June of 1987. And you have to remember that was the year that the PS2s even came out, earlier than that, the initial models. And with DOS at that time, there was communication programs that were available to run on your PC to make them look like a communications terminal, an ASYNC terminal. And then, of course, Windows, even from the early versions, had a terminal application that was in there that you could go through and make your personal computer do to act like an ASCII terminal. So this is a relatively, I mean, it's a wide open field for what it did. And there they talk about the different models. Of course, we have the green screen, but there it's a mention of the trademark of Weiss Technology and trademark of Digital Equipment Corporation. And then we have the features there. And they talk about that slimline cartridge, and we'll look at that in a moment too. They talk about the other aspects to this ASCII display station. IBM did have other models as well for this. This appears to me to be one of the later flavors, although they did also do an info station that was ASCII as well. And talk about the native modes and things like that. There's a chart of the different models, whether it was what color the screen was, could have different keys. I did actually take the keyboard, the 102 key keyboard or whatever it is from the My Info window unit, it's an RJ45 connection that we'll see in a moment for that. I don't know if this model necessarily was adapted to the 122 key keyboard necessarily, but there it goes through for the different emulation. The 3101 I think was the first basically ASCII terminal that IBM had. And they talk about the emulation modes and that cartridge again. And then it has talks about the optional tilt swivel stand. We'll look at that in a moment. And the 84 key space-saving keyboard is probably, they're talking about, effectively it's the 101 key keyboard, but it's got the number area to the right basically cut off. It doesn't have that number entry pad that's over on the right to the cursor keys. And it might be that the keyboard was the, the main aspect that went through and was messing with me when I was trying to get into the setup process. But they have all the emulation modes there. And there's quite a bit more on the sheet. I can probably provide a link to that. They go through for the order numbers. I'll scroll down further. This is just basically just blocks of information. And again, this can be paused to go through and to read it better. And they even talk about that remote attachment for connecting up to the mainframe and mid-range systems. There's your system 36 and 38. And they talk about a cartridge with some modes, some communication modes. And there were businesses that ran these as ASCII terminals. They had the big system in the back, and then they had up at a counter they had these units running. Okay, and we're almost getting to the end of this text. And there's some of the pricing. And that being in $1987. You'd have to adjust for inflation to get a indication of how what those would be priced in dollars today. Okay, just about to the end. Okay. So let's go through, get myself back on the screen here, get looking at the terminal. I'm going to go through the setup screen here first since I have it powered up and on that right now. I do have the camcorder shot is here, and I tried zooming in. Evidently, my camcorder likes the green a little bit better than it did for the amber screen of the info window the other day. Okay, and that's relatively visible. I can probably go through with my tripod. Okay. I think that's going to be about as good as it can get. Try and minimize some oscillation here. As seen. And so we can see that we're on the setup menu. And I think I got in this by like the F4 or the F5 or something like that on the keyboard. But we're into, and what I did is I went through down for the, I think when you change the machine mode, and we're on the general screen, if we go through for the system, it's set at system attached, but we do the space bar for the, and it kind of toggles through. That's set to the IBM 3151, so that's kind of like a native mode. And then you have that terminal ID that you could go through, you can fill in. And this is just shifting through the machine modes. The highlight's really hard to see on the screen. Right now, it's set to the machine mode of IBM 3101. This is the ADM3A, so it's another brand of terminal type. And that modifies the settings that are below that are unhighlighted. They're relatively visible. This is the ADM5. The ADDS VP-A2, all these terminal types that you can go through. The HZ 1500, the TVI 910 Plus or 910 is that machine mode. The TVI 925E slash 925, the TVI 920 slash 912. Okay, the VT200 Control 8 is what shifted down for that system mode. And this is where it seems like it has that German text that has got in place. And this is what I was seeing initially when I started up. VT200 Control 7, VT100, VT52. These are very standard ASCII terminal types from other brands. Okay. And that's gone back to the system attach. Okay. Now, as I learned, effectively the inner key is set to the, it has that down at the bottom, it has the setup. Excuse me, the send button is the next menu, and the send key is actually set to what would be on a 101 key keyboard to the inner key, which is on my info window terminal keyboard. It is the field exit key. And so that, okay, let me see. Okay, and that shifts to the communication screen where we can go through the baud rates and 9600, 19200, 38400, 50 BPS, 75 BPS, 110 BPS. So these are the older, slower rates. 134.5 BPS, 150, 200, 300, 600, 1200, 1800, 2400 BPS, 3600, 4800, 9600. So that goes through all those rates. By the cursor keys, we can go through the settings for either RS-232 or the RS-422A. And we can get into all the effective 8 bits for the word length, the even, and 1 stop bit, which is common. These are all adjustable settings to go through. I'm going to leave them for the defaults just to remember to where they are in these settings. Now for the next screen, I'm going to go to enter. Okay, and this is where apparently all the keys of the keyboard are set up for some of these things. And as I say, enter is mapped to effectively the send key, or that's the name of it. I just know to press the particular enter key on the keyboard now, since kind of just learning this as we go along. Okay, and we've gone to the function screen. We have the reset terminal. You know, it'd be interesting to see what the defaults are for that. I just didn't know about that German I guess I have to do the space bar. See, that's why I say that I was trying to go through, and that's why I wanted to leave that setup screen on the front, because I don't know the way to get in there now. It's not even for the shift setup effectively. See, now I can't get back into that area. And that's why that's why I went through and did that. And this is actually at the brightest intensity that I could do. Let's go through and now at least I've shown the setup that I'm not able to get back into. Maybe I shouldn't have gone through and reset it. Let's go around the physical aspects. And it's an RJ45 connector for the keyboard on the front. That same thing that we've been seeing with the info window. And it's got the intensity, screen intensity, and the on-off button here. We'll go through, we'll unplug this from power. I have my Twin-X lead there, of course, because that's not applicable in this case. Now, the first thing I can probably do is on this underside, there's a separate tilt swivel base. It's evidently a higher price, but it's got kind of this pivot here. I went through and cleaned this earlier, but this is, of course, bringing all the, going through and moving this around is bringing all the stuff that it just didn't mop up. But it just kind of this pivot for adjusting the angle of the screen for the operator. Just kind of like a wedge. It goes through there from front to back. You can get the separate swivel base. It's a little bit more tilt and swivel base. It's a little bit more conventional for this model. So this is a little bit more of the budget connection for the model. There's no connections on the side for this terminal. Rather thin profile for all that. And on the back, so this is the connection, your ASYNC connection to your data line, wherever you're going back to your host, and to a modem, other things like that, dial-up modem. And this is effectively the printer selection, and I didn't really see too much configuration as far as that. I mean, you're setting it up with the host that this is communication with to send data to the printer, basically treating this like a printer of the host system, whatever application that's running that's relevant to that. And here's the power connection. Now, the biggest thing to this, and we can see at least they're listing, well, it lists the type. And it looks like they're listing as the 7th of 1989 for this particular terminal. The most intriguing factor of this is this little block where you pull this little wedge out of the way, and there's the cartridge that they're talking about, where you pull that out of the little slot. They talk about it being like a credit card. IBM made some stuff like memory cards and things like that, font cartridges in this sort of package. And I was hoping to see whether those are staggered or... It's almost like a PCMCIA or card bus card. But there they have the information on the card. And so I remember seeing the information on this particular cartridge for the IBM and DEC terminals, and what the part number is, and the keyboard being US English. So evidently these cartridges were appropriate. They could load whatever cartridge in the system to be appropriate for that model. And of course they give the arrow for inserting it the right way, seeing it fully, and then putting that little wedge protector over it. So that is the the limit of what that the keyboard the system has to it. you know, rather basic unit for all that, for being an ASCII terminal. But as I say, there's a big field of competition that was present for something like an ASCII terminal at that time. So if you enjoyed me showing a terminal that's a little bit more off the wall for being just that common functionality, click on that like button, please. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. I'm going through and prepping for the live stream tomorrow as well. I hope you will join me for that. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.